Dr. Pete, thank you so much for being here today. Super excited to get into this one.
My pleasure, Ryan. Glad to be here. Thank you.
So, like I was saying before we hit record, I was able to catch a bunch of your past podcasts, and I'm incredibly intrigued by what you do and just the world of the unknown. And there's just so much in this realm of healing in particular that modern medicine really misses out on. And, we have this perception a lot of times that these things are a hoax, a gimmick, whatever the perception may be. But when it comes to your case and so many other examples, this stuff really works.
Well, on that note, it's interesting because you brought a good point about perception people might have about what's legit, what's not legit, what works, what's real, what's not real. People who say certain things about what they're claiming is real, are they just frauds? In other words, they know it's not real, but they're just trying to sell you something. Or B, maybe they do believe in what they're saying, but they're just not that good. But then there's the other possibility that they actually can deliver these things. And what's really nice about the healing realm is results are results. So for example, let's just say, Ryan, that two people were arguing about politics. Let's just say, I know we're not talking about politics, but let's say some people were talking about politics. So let's say one person loved Trump, one person loved Biden. It can become an argument, and they'll both make their points, and maybe they'll convince each other, and maybe they won't. But nonetheless, it's not very tangible. It's a little abstract, the things they're saying, and it's really kind of hard to prove their points. They can just do their best to convince the other person they're talking to. But healing is a little different. What's nice about healing is results are results. They're very concrete, because let's say, for example, just as a random example, let's say someone had a terrible digestive problem. Let's say it was called IBS, which is a kind of a label for a digestive problem. That person wants to have perfect digestion. That's what they want to have. They used to have IBS, or they have IBS, and what they want to have is perfect digestion. That's what they're interested in. So the point is, anyone, whether they're a medical doctor or an acupuncturist or a chiropractor or an herbalist or a spiritual healer or whatever, anyone can say to that person, or at least about that person, I can help them. I can help them have perfect digestion. The nice part is the results will just prove who can deliver and who can't. So if there's a certain practitioner or doctor or healer of some type that people with IBS are going to, and after working with them for a short time, their digestion is perfect, there's not much else to talk about, because then there's not a question, is this person a fraud? Is this a hoax? Whatever. Well, I guess not. This person had IBS for 10 years. They tried 50 things, nothing worked. And they went to so-and-so, now their digestion is perfect. And of course, and that's reproducible with multiple patients with that. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought this up because it brings me into the role of belief when it comes to healing. And we have to control for the placebo effect in studies for a reason. So I guess the person who will see, let's say the person who sees someone like yourself getting results, but they still don't believe it, and they chalk it up to placebo, what do you say to that person?
Well, I have a multi-part answer for you. The first thing I'll say is this: it's interesting. I was interviewed, and I know you said you saw a few of my interviews, and I don't know if you saw this one, but I was interviewed, a while ago, and the interviewer asked me a similar question to what you just asked. It was a very good interview, very good interviewer, like yourself, and he what happened at the time was I had a patient come to me who was on a liver transplant list. Now, Ryan, you can imagine how messed up someone's liver is if they're on a liver transplant list, right? In other words, the doctor or doctors they've went to have said to them, look, your liver is beyond repair. You need a new one. So we have to transplant your liver. We're putting you on a liver transplant list. So someone came to me on a liver transplant list. They had tried, whatever they tried. I don't know what they tried, but they tried a few things. And obviously they got referred to me and we balanced their body. and their liver healed. I know it sounds unbelievable to some people, but that's what happened. And they went back to their doctor after working with me for a little bit, and the doctor said, wow, I don't know how this happened, but your liver is healed. You no longer need a transplant. You are now off the liver transplant list. That's what happened. Now, it happens the guy who interviewed me, that particular interview that I'm referring to, is also a friend of mine. He's a very, very nice podcast. And he's also a friend of mine. So he knew the story anyway. He knew it because we're friends, and I had mentioned it to him. But of course, knowing the story and being my friend and interviewing me on his podcast, he brought it up. And when he brought it up, he said this. He said, Pete, what about the people who say that's just the placebo effect? He said that, So, somehow the placebo effect, which can be very powerful, somehow that's what healed them. It wasn't really your zone technique or whatever. I know they came to you with a really messed up liver, and I know their liver is healthy now, but let's say it was just the placebo effect. My answer to him, and kind of rehash it now, was, okay, maybe it was, I don't know. But you know what? Here's someone on a liver transplant list and no one else could help. I mean, they went to acupuncturists and medical doctors and this and that. They came to me, now their liver's healed. So I don't know. Was it 100% placebo? Okay, could be. Was it 0% placebo? I don't know. Was it 50? I don't know. Who cares? So that's my first part of the answer. Because Ryan, I'm sure you look like a healthy guy, but I'm sure, God forbid, if you needed some healing and you came to me and someone's like, oh, I heard you went to that guy, Dr. Pete. And you're like, yeah. And you're like, man, I don't know what he did. He fixed me. I'm all better. I'm perfect health. And let's say your friends were like, I think it was placebo. I'm sure you'd say, I don't care. I don't know. I'm all better now. I don't know what the guy did. So that's the first part of my answer. The second part of my answer is the word placebo is very tricky. It's a very tricky word. It's kind of like ego, EGO. Ego has so many different definitions. Some people think ego is very healthy. Some people think ego is the worst thing in the world. And some people think there's things in between. So when someone's talking about, hey, what do you think of ego? Well, you'd have to define it first because there's so many definitions of it before you have that conversation. And it's similar with placebo. It's like the placebo effect has so many different intricacies in the definitions. It's a little tough to use that word universally in a conversation. But with that said, continuing, this is what I'll say. I will say that, let's just say the placebo effect is a non-physical source. In other words, like, it's not the chiropractic adjustment. It's not the acupuncture needle. It's not the medical, whatever they put in your mouth, like some kind of medication. It's not the herbalist that gives you the herb. These are all physical exchanges, the chiropractic adjustment, the needle, these are physical things. Now, the placebo effect, of course, is non-physical. That's someone believing something is helping them and something happens in the cells of their body, which actually helps heal their body. It's a non-physical thing. So let's explore that further with the placebo effect in this question you're asking. So let's just say that the non-physical element of healing, which at the moment, we're talking about the placebo effect as part of that. But of course, that's a bigger subject, the non-physical element of healing. Let's say that's actually the most important part of healing. Let's say that's more important than the acupuncture needle or the chiropractic adjustment or the herbalist. Let's just say. So, which it is, by the way. But what's interesting is, here's the interesting part, Ryan. And I'm pretty familiar with healers and doctors, 95% of healers and doctors who do what they do, and some with good results, some help people, they think it's what they're doing physically. They think, like the acupuncturist who puts the needle in and gets good results, they think it's because they're putting the needle in. The herbalist who listens to your symptoms and comes up with the proper herb and tells you to take this herb, and then you get better, they think it's the herb. The chiropractor who cracks this bone and puts the bone back so the nerves can flow properly, they think it's the chiropractic adjustment. But actually, for those who really, 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 really understand healing, like me, without going into the whole intricate details here, I can tell you that 90+% of what heals is the non-physical. And if we want to call it the placebo, go ahead. So that's the answer. The question is, or the interesting, sidebar to this is not so much the question, is which healers know how to, on purpose, tap in to the non-physical element? Because plenty of healers are inadvertently tapping into the non-physical element, because that herbalist who believes it's this herb, they say, Ryan, we're just making this up. I know you're healthy, but we pretend, you had some XYZ problem. They say, Ryan, I heard what your problem is. I'm a famous herbalist. You came to me. You take this herb twice a day for 2 weeks, not 15 days, not 13 days, 14 days, twice a day, and you'll come back to me and you will be totally healed. You can take it with meals, not with meals, doesn't make a difference. Just take this. And if you have faith in them and they have faith in what they're doing, you're most likely going to heal, no matter what's in that herb. Now, when you come back and you're better, they don't even understand that. Like, see, it's that herb. This is a powerful herb. It works. It ain't the herb. I mean, to an extent, the physical has some bearing, but the non-physical. Now, it's funny. We're living in 2023. I predict, but of course, I'm not psychic, so I could be totally wrong about this. But even non-psychics like me, we're allowed to predict things. So I'll take my liberty to make this prediction. I bet you in 200 years, people will just know that what really heals is the non-physical. We're just living in this very archaic time, which we think is modern, but we're living in this time where people think it's the physical. And one day, society and doctors and healers will realize it's the non-physical. But we live in a time where people don't understand that. And it's funny because someone might say, well, Peter, it's 2023. Give me a break. I mean, look how modern things are. Things aren't modern at all. Look, Ryan, in 1950, they were looking back at 1900 and going, man, look, they didn't know anything back then. This is 1950. And now we're looking back at 1950. We're like, they didn't know anything. So guess what? In 15, 20 years, they'll look back at 2023 and go, man, those guys were barbarians. What were they doing? They didn't know what they were doing. Because, listen, when, George Washington was supposedly the first president of this country, I heard he was, and there's some other alternate history where actually I've heard he actually wasn't our first president, but I'm not an expert at that stuff, so I'm not going to comment on that. But with that said, George Washington apparently was the president. Now, when George Washington got sick, I don't know if you know this, Ryan, but when he got sick, you'd think, right, like all the best doctors were doing their best to help the guy live. He was the president and he was sick. So what did they do back then, Ryan? What was the medically accepted procedure? They took out a pint of his blood. They used to bleed people. So they bled him and he did not get better. So they took out another pint of blood and he died. Now, we can look back and be like, oh, man, they didn't know what they were doing. But like I said, not too distant future, they'll look back at 2023 and be like, look what these doctors were doing. They were ridiculous. So anyway, that's my prediction. One day, people will wake up and realize that the non-physical element is 90+% of the healing. And maybe that will happen. We'll see.
I like what you said about being the guy who understands that it's a non-physical that's big part of the healing. Because, you have the herbalists who are saying it is the herb, it's not the non-physical. And it brings me to this conversation about the subconscious mind. And I do these Twitter spaces on Thursday nights with an MD. And the other day, we had a Harvard MD that popped in the chat, and he was telling us a story of one of his classmates at Harvard, a Harvard MD. He became a hypnotist, and he saw a patient who was hypnotized by somebody else into thinking he was pregnant.
Now, by the way, before you go on, I don't even know the story. Obviously, I'm hearing this for the first time. I know nothing about this, but I'm already going to predict some stuff. Again, we've never discussed this before. I know nothing about this, but I guarantee you, if that hypnotic suggestion was powerful enough in the subconscious, that guy would have started displaying all the symptoms of a pregnant woman.
Yep,
Of
absolutely.
course, of course.
And so what he was saying was that certain people are easier to hypnotize than others. Trauma could play a big role in it. But when he was telling me the story, I couldn't help but think, how the hell can I use hypnotism, the power of the subconscious mind, all these things to improve my health, my discipline, just the way I move through life? What do you think? What have you learned about the subconscious?
Well, that's a several hour answer, but I'll pare it down. I've learned that, what is the conscious mind? The conscious mind is what you're aware of right now. What is the subconscious mind? Sub means below conscious. So you're not aware of it. You can't think of what's in your subconscious mind. You can only think of what's in your conscious mind because you're conscious of it. Subconscious meaning below conscious. You don't know what's there. But here's the cool part. Let's say someone's like, oh, it's interesting. How do I know it's in my subconscious mind? How do I know what concepts are in my subconscious mind? It's very easy. Look at your body and look at your life. That is a direct replica of the concepts in your subconscious mind. So let's just start there. Now, the second thing is, how did they get there? Let's say Ryan's like, I'm looking at my body and my life. That's a direct replica of the concepts in my subconscious mind. How'd they get there in the first place? Well, they got there in the first place, for the most part, between birth and 7.
Really?
Yes. For the most part, between birth and 7. So if you could imagine this, when you're 7 years old, your conscious mind gets formed, or around 7. And there's something called the psychic sensor, which kind of separates your conscious from your subconscious. And the psychic sensor kind of protects the subconscious from things coming into it. Now, again, there are ways that things get into it, but that's a different conversation. But from birth till roughly 7, you have no real conscious mind. You're just like one exposed subconscious with no psychic sensor protecting it. So everything that happens around you from birth till 7, some is positive, some is negative, some is indifferent, but it gets accepted by the subconscious as fact. For example, you take a little kid, right? I'm just giving you a simple, easy example. And the parents are always telling the kid's 4 or 5 years old, hey, listen, you're a delicate kid. You have a delicate constitution. When you go out, always bundle up, put on a scarf, put on a hat, because you can get sick easily. That the kid can't reason on that, because the subconscious mind can only reason deductively. It just accepts. It cannot reason inductively, where it considers things. So it just accepts. This kid accepts that they are weak. They have a weak immune system. They're delicate. That kid now is a 35-year-old, man or woman. And if the freaking the wind blows wrong, they think they're getting sick, and they will get a cold. Mm-hmm. Now, on the other hand, of course, unless they change that concept, people can have their, through hypnosis or many things, you can change your concepts. But if that concept isn't changed, that will manifest in their life. On the other hand, if you have a kid and the parents are like, yeah, you're super tough, you're made of steel, go have fun, go play, you're fine. That kid grows up with a concept. They're strong, they're hardy, they're healthy. It could be 25 degrees out. They're walking with like a unbuttoned jacket, no hat, doesn't. So that's an example. Now, it's interesting. I want to just give an example, which I've taught when I teach in my zone school. I've used this example several times, but there's an idea, Ryan. Now, again, I'm not saying this idea is true or false. I'm just saying there is an idea that jogging, like a lot of jogging, can hurt your knees over time. Again, I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it's false. I'm just saying there are people who believe that they jogged for so many years, all the pounding on the knees can mess their knees up. And as you can imagine, there are many people who walk into medical doctors' offices, chiropractors' offices, osteopath offices, acupuncture offices, and they tell the doc that their knees are messed up, and their knees are messed up because they jogged for 20 years. So even though the jogging they thought was good for them in general, it did mess their knees up, and their knees are really suffering now because of the jogging. And most likely the doctor will say, no, it's true. All that pounding on the knees did mess it up. We're going to do the best we can to help you. That's a very common conversation. So there's this idea that pounding on the knees will mess them up. Okay. Now, way back in the day, I used to do a lot of, I still do a lot of martial arts, but I used to do a lot of fighting at a high level. And back in 1993, I went to Thailand because I was doing a lot of like stand-up fighting and kickboxing and that kind of stuff. So I wanted to spar with Thai boxers in Thailand. I was in very, very good shape then. I was training and fighting at a world-class level. So I went to Thailand, and I noticed I was at a couple professional Thai boxing gyms. I noticed that every morning, all the fighters would jog 10 miles. Wake up, jog 10 miles, come back, do some calisthenics, have breakfast, and then train all day. The professional fighters. So in my head, I'm thinking, oh, these guys probably do the 10-mile jog, for stamina and endurance, because, when you're fighting, you need that. So I asked one of the trainers, I said, are you guys jogging 10 miles every morning for stamina and endurance? He said, no, because we train all day. We have stamina and endurance. We train all day. I said, why are you jogging 10 miles every morning? He goes, oh, that's to make our knees strong.
Yeah.
He goes, all the pounding from the jogging makes the knees really strong. And, if you know about Thai boxing with the clinch and the knees, you better have strong knees. You could try to knee someone, you catch an elbow, whatever. So I was like, man, I'm like, in Thailand, they jog and they think it's good for their knees, and it is. And in the US and Europe, people jog and they think it's bad for their knees, and it is. And I'm like, man, is it the physical activities we do, or is it the concepts we have attached to the physical activities that create the physical response? Well, the answer is the latter, obviously, the second. So anyway, that's a real interesting study of a subconscious concept. Now, again, Ryan, you have to be logical. You can't take it to an extreme. Like, you can't tell someone, okay, listen, your body's totally balanced, you're totally healthy, you're healthy head to toe, just go to the top of the building and jump off, but you'll be fine because, your body can, obviously it's ridiculous. Someone cannot go to the top of a building and jump off. So there is a limit. There's a limit to these things, but within the realm of logic, the concept in the subconscious will determine what reflects in the body.
It makes for such an interesting conversation. And as you're saying that and talking about the knee example with the runners, what comes up in my mind is I'm super into learning about diet, nutrition, living a healthy, holistic lifestyle, right? And I hear about things like seed oils, for example, these like inflammatory oils that are cooked in every restaurant, whatever. So for a long time, anytime I would eat a meal at a restaurant, that little voice in the back of my head would tell me that there is seed oils in this meal. And I've been trying to just kind of be more disconnected from that voice. But what can we do to influence the subconscious where I could be like, yeah, there's seed oils in this meal, but I'm stronger?
Well, it's interesting because there's a book. I recommend this book to anyone who's listening. There was a guy named Koichi Tohei, Koichi, Koichi, Tohei, Tohei, and he was an Aikido master. Not that I'm a expert on Aikido, because I'm not, but he was an Aikido master. And again, Aikido is an interesting thing because a lot of people say, and they're probably right, they'll say like, oh, Aikido, it's not really practical for self-defense. It's kind of ridiculous, and they're probably correct. But the founder of Aikido, whose name was O-sensei, he only gave out 1/10 degree black belt in his life. When he was alive, he only gave out 1/10 degree black belt. And it was to Koichi Tohei. And Koichi Tohei was, if you want to call him an exception, he was a badass. Like, the guy could fight. He was a real legit master. And he actually broke off from the general Aikido lineage, which is kind of called Aikikai. and he made what's called Ki Aikido, which is a separate branch of Aikido. And he was very interested in bringing the ki aspect back, which of course is the Japanese word for energy. So he, wrote some books, and if anyone goes to like Amazon and they search Koichi Tohei books, and there's several books there. I forgot why I brought him up already. What was the last question?
I was talking about the trying to influence the subconscious mind, particularly when like.
Oh yeah. Okay, got it.
Okay,
got it. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, I got so excited about the books, I forgot what you asked. Okay, now I remember. So thanks for reminding me. So basically, he gives the story, and he says that earlier in the book, he said, well, I don't know where in the book, but somewhere in the book or one of his books, he says that during World War II, he was in the Japanese army, and he was fighting against China in World War II. I believe that's the scenario, but that doesn't matter. The point is, they got cut off from enemy lines. Like they got cut off behind enemy lines is what I mean. So they lost all their food supply, like all their rations. So the only thing they had left was rice, like in their backpacks. And they were in this very remote part of wherever they were fighting, and there was no clean water. They was just like this sitting water, like kind of streams that were completely dirty, but they had to make their rice in this completely dirty water. But just based on the fact that they had nothing else to eat, they literally appreciated this food as the only thing that's going to make them live, and all the adrenaline from being in war and whatever, they felt fine. They ate this completely dirty, disgusting water-made rice, and plus there's no real protein or whatever. Just eat, or I don't know how much protein is in rice. I don't think much, but they're eating this. But because of their mental state, they were fine. Now, obviously, if it was not wartime and they were at some fancy restaurant in Tokyo and someone served them that rice, they get food poisoning immediately. So, listen, I'm not saying people shouldn't eat good, and as far as the seed oils or whatever, but if your mindset is right about the food you're putting in your mouth, most likely your body will make it into something good. And if your mindset is not good when you're eating even healthy food, most likely your body will turn it into something bad. And you don't even have to look too far, Ryan, because I bet you, let's just say, for example, you got a meal which you consider to be healthy. Like, I don't know what that is, but like an organic, I don't know.
Steak.
Like a grass-fed steak, and like an organic, whatever. Okay. But let's just say right before you eat it, you are freaking pissed off. Like you're so angry, your blood is boiling. Like and then you eat that. You're gonna have diarrhea. It's gonna go right through. Your body will turn that fantastic meal into pretty much poison. Your body will treat it like poison. On the other hand, if you have a Coca-Cola and you're as happy as could be, your body might turn that into medicine. So listen, I'm all for eating healthy, but your attitude toward what you're eating plays a humongous role.
Absolutely. I've learned that, or I've realized that just when you eat in a parasympathetic state versus a sympathetic state, your digestion is so much better when you're relaxed.
Which is exactly
exactly
what
you're just saying. About, yeah. So how do we influence the subconscious through? What comes to mind is psychedelics, and it seems like psychedelics put you in a state of mind that, because of the ability to the neuroplasticity of psychedelics that puts you in, that it could be almost easier to hypnotize yourself or hypnotize someone else when they're in a state of psychedelics. What's your thoughts on that? That was just something I was thinking when.
I have a couple thoughts about psychedelics. Let me start by saying I never tried them, so I am speaking a bit from ignorance, but I've heard quite a bit about them. And I know some people who swear by them and love them. So I have nothing bad to say about them, but at the same time, I have nothing good to say about them because I really don't have experience with them. But with that said, as a preface, I'll give you a couple thoughts. It appears that people who have these psychedelic experiences, they feel a oneness with everything. They don't feel separate. They don't feel like a separate entity. They take whatever they take and they feel one with all life. That's significant because, putting psychedelics aside, if you look at most people who have been illuminated or enlightened, Jesus, Buddha, Moses, Muhammad, whoever these people, or other people too, who those of course are religious figures who had some kind of enlightenment supposedly, but I'm just talking about other people who were not religious figures who had enlightenment or enlightenments. They all talk about feeling, it appears the common denominator in illuminations and enlightenments is they talk about feeling one with everything. They don't feel like a separate person. They feel one with all of life. So the fact that people take psychedelics and tend to feel one with all of life, it's a pretty good argument that they're really good to take, because it's putting you into an enlightened state. Now, the argument against it, again, I'm not making this argument, I don't know, but the argument against it might be like, yeah, but you're like putting yourself in that state artificially, and it actually ultimately will not only not help you, it could even hurt you. Now, again, I don't know if that's true, but some might say, no, listen, if you can get to this enlightened state so easily, why hold yourself back? Just do it. So again, those are kind of the two sides of the coin of that. I don't really know which one of them is right. But it's kind of like there's some saying, if you take a turtle, if you see like a little turtle walking on the road, and you put it up, and you take the turtle and you put it up on top of a fence, there's two things about the turtle. A, he doesn't know how he got there, and B, he doesn't know how he's going to get down. It's like the old saying. I mean, I hope no one ever does that to a turtle, because it's not nice, but it's just a saying. So it's kind of like when you take the psychedelic and you're feeling one with all life. Well, how'd you get there, and what are you going to do now? But how about this though? Okay, so now I will say, as a concluding comment on that subject, let's say, Ryan, you know someone, whoever, or I know someone, or we know someone, whatever. Let's say they're having, trouble in life. They're depressed, they have anxiety, they're not motivated, they're not healthy, let's just say. And they start taking a lot of psychedelics and having these experiences. But past the actual experiences, which of course we're talking about now, these people actually start, they don't have anxiety anymore. They don't have depression. They're motivated. They're enthused. Well, good. I mean, I would say good. The psychedelics work for them, right? Because if you look at the before and after, the before, they're living this very miserable life, but then they had several psychedelic experiences. And now they're happy. There's nothing to say except great, good for them. So
yeah,
I would add that.
It's interesting. And the reason why I asked it initially is because, it's something that fascinates me from an intellectual standpoint, because, you see people curing depression with it. And there's these very cool studies. And it seems like one of the mechanisms in which it works is that our brain forms these like grooves, or these ways or patterns of living life. And we just fall into these patterns. And how it's been described to me is psychedelics is like a new snow that comes down, and those grooves are, now you could form new grooves, and you can reprogram some of that subconscious behavior. So I was curious, with that work, with that understanding of being able to reprogram behavior and the work that you do, if that would be an interesting infusion together for people who struggle to get results.
Well, here's the thing. Thankfully, and again, what I'm about to say is no negative reflection on psychedelics at all, which I've already said. But thankfully, I don't need them, because if someone comes to me, I'll fix them up without psychedelics. Now, with that said, if someone doesn't have access to me or the people I've taught, and they save themselves through psychedelics, good, I'm all for it. I like results. Whatever works, if it's psychedelics, good,
Let's go into your work then. So how does this work? Like, what exactly are people doing, in your words, to balance the body when you see a patient?
Good question. So first of all, I am a chiropractor. I did graduate chiropractic school in the mid 1990s. I learned something outside of school about healing, which I've developed. I was going to say perfected. I don't know if I perfected it, but doing my best. And again, the results are the results, like meaning, I mean, people have come to me with every damn condition under the sun, and in general have had spectacular results, which they're not going to get anywhere else. Certainly not from any other chiropractor, that's for sure. And I did this for a long time. I had a practice that had people flying into me from all over the world, which, as you know, Ryan, is pretty rare. How many chiropractors have people flying in to see them? I don't know, not many, if any, these days. So we actually calculated it once that we had people flying in from 30 different countries and cities around the world. So we had people flying in to see me from New York, Chicago, Guam, Hawaii, UK, Netherlands, Malaysia, whatever. And we also had a little over 200 people driving 4 hours each way for treatments. So of all the people, not the people flying in, and not the people who live near my office, but we had, in addition to those, we had a group of about 200 who live 4 hours away. That means they're driving 4 hours each way for 5 minutes with me. 8 hours of driving for a 5-minute session. So you could see that obviously these results were spectacular, because what I just said speaks for itself. Also, another thing is, a lot of people don't know that when chiropractic was established in 1895, it really had nothing to do with neck and back pain. It was about helping heal any part of the body, any of the organs, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, the first chiropractor in his book, the neck and back pain is almost an afterthought. He said, well, look, chiropractic can help heal pretty much mostly anything. Oh, and by the way, if someone has neck or back pain, it could be helpful for that too. It's almost an afterthought in his book. But somehow from 1895, when he made chiropractic, till 2023, the profession kind of turned upside down. And now if you go to 99% of chiropractors' offices, 99% of the people there are there for neck and back pain. Of course, a few chiropractors, listen, if you practice long enough, you practice for 10, 20, 30 years, you're going to get your exceptions, and you're going to help people with non-musculoskeletal stuff here and there. But in my practice over the years, it's been about 90% of the people in my waiting room coming for systemic health stuff. They're coming for their thyroid, their liver, their pancreas, their gallbladder, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, when it comes to neck and back pain, the results that I get are amazing too. So with that said, because I was having this kind of practice for so many years with these unparalleled healing results and people coming from all over and healing from all kinds of stuff. And these are people who had tried every chiropractic technique and acupuncture and this and that, and were still sick, and they would come and heal. So in 2017, I opened Zone School, and the website is zoneschoolofhealing.com, zoneschoolofhealing.com. And basically I teach, it's an online program. I also teach in-person events, in addition to the online program. So again, Zone School of Healing is an online program, and I do teach optional and supplemental in-person events. But anyway, anyone who goes to zoneschoolofhealing.com who is a doctor or healer of some type, you have to be either a chiropractor or an acupuncturist or an MD or a Reiki master or a massage therapist or something, some kind of doctor or healer, they can sign up for my class. They can learn online. The basic course has about 60 hours of me teaching them, which they can watch at their convenience, 5 minutes a day or 1 hour a day or in between, whatever. And in a few months, they'll be a master healer. Now we have over 1,300 members worldwide. And I have a lot of advanced programs within Zone School. So I have about 500 hours of content, which is for the more advanced members. And we've created an army of healing masters worldwide. So with that said, I am teaching the zone technique, which is a type of healing technique, which is very applicable to chiropractic and can be applied to other types of healing. And more important, and this kind of wraps back to what we started with at the beginning, more important, maybe 10% of what I teach is the zone technique. 90% of what I teach are principles of healing, which, like I said, are not being taught anywhere else that I know about. And when these principles of healing are learned and applied, either by chiropractors or any kind of doctor or healer, whatever they were capable of before, they're capable of infinitely more now, as far as healing results go. So again, zoneschoolofhealing.com. Anyone can go who's a doctor or healer, sign up, start learning. You can also click on the live events section, see where I'll be teaching live events if you want to come to one of those. Again, those are optional and supplemental, but the program is an online program and it will make you a master healer.
So what are these principles of zone?
Well, again, good question. So the zone technique itself, which is maybe 10% of what I teach, it divides the body up into various systems, and there's ways to quickly find out which are not balanced and balance them. And of course, that's all taught in Zone School, and it's explained a little bit more on the Zone site. Now, the principles of healing, those are things that, I've had tens of thousands of hours of study from various sources of metaphysics and healing and other things that I've been exposed to. And I've kind of taken a composite of it and a distillation of it. And I teach those in Zone School as these high level principles of healing. To give you just a taste of it. Okay, I'll give you a little taste of it. We talked about the subconscious before. Well, how can you contact and direct someone's subconscious outside of hypnosis? That's a way to do it too. But how can you, when the person's wide awake, contact and direct their subconscious and replace a former limiting and or negative concept with an empowering and healthy concept, so that's what manifests in the body? Well, again, I teach that. And that's, if you know how to do that, people will think you're a damn miracle worker.
So really a lot of it comes down to these fundamental techniques to really take control of the subconscious mind.
I would say, I would just hesitate to use the word control because people, I think that has some negative connotation, but not to say that you're mistaken, but I just don't really use that word because, again, kind of like ego and placebo, like so many
negative
connotations with the word control. So I would just say, if someone has concepts in their subconscious that are manifesting as, disease and or a horrible life, and you know how to interact with them while they're wide awake, it's not hypnosis, and you know how to access their subconscious and implant a proper healing idea that is counter to the former negative idea, and that concept gets in the subconscious, that's just what's going to manifest.
So essentially what you're saying, to break down this whole conversation to one sentence, is it works because you're able to take what is unconscious or non-physical and bring it into a realm of possibilities to then make it something that the body realizes is in balance, or it essentially helps the body. You use the subconscious mind to help the body get back into a state of healing or of balance.
I like that. Ryan, you did a good job. First of all, that was a long sentence.
Yeah, it was a long sentence. I kind of lost it there for a second.
But no, you did a really good job because you are taking like a very vast subject and summarizing it in a short period. So you did a really good job. And yes, I would say that was a pretty damn good summary.
So let's talk about one thing that is particularly interested in that I'm particularly interested in is this world of like autoimmune diseases, where you have an immune system that's overreactive and it's attacking itself. It seems like a perfect candidate for things like hypnosis, subconscious, reprogramming, the work that you do. Has there been a lot of success with autoimmune diseases?
Yes, phenomenal success. And I have several thoughts about what you said, which I'm going to break down for you. My first thought is this: whether it's an autoimmune disease or a digestive problem or a circulatory problem or a muscular problem or a glandular problem, it's all the same to me. So again, I'm not, autoimmune, whatever, just add it to the list of stuff. That's number one. Number two, you said you had a lot of interest in it, which is good, but I just want to, if I may, just say to you, don't have too much interest in it because you don't want to identify with that crap because you don't want it to have anything to do with you. So you can observe it from afar, but don't get too much interest in it.
Good point.
A study of health is vastly more profitable than a study of disease because what you think about tends to manifest. So don't get too interested in it. That's number two. Number three, let's just say, I just want to tell you how I look at, hyperactive or a hypoactive immune system. It's not like I'm like, let me give them the treatment for the hyperactive immune system, or let me give them the treatment for the hypoactive. I'm just interested in balancing the immune system. So wherever it is, it comes to normal. So I want to add that too. And yes, are there people who are going to like acupuncturists and herbalists and other doctors and getting their formerly autoimmune condition healed? Yes, they are. As we said earlier in the conversation, most likely does that doctor think, yeah, it was the needle or the herb, but it was the image of healing that did it, that got that subconscious. Maybe it was pushed along a bit with that physical component, but they don't really understand that. But that's okay, because as long as they get better, they get better. So anyway, so those are some thoughts on that subject. But yeah, I have great results with that.
Is there anything that is kind of out of your realm of possibility when it comes to healing, like cancer? Like, what are some things that just don't work well?
Well, a couple things. This is what I would say. I'll start by saying, I think if you look at the history of diseases, every single disease has healed. Mm-hmm. I think even like leprosy is healed. I think everything is healed. So that's number one.
That's a good point.
Number two, as I've said before, God forbid someone's like surfing and a shark bites off their arm. I'm not going to have the confidence to tell them, yeah, just come to my office and we'll just keep working on you until your arm grows back. I mean, I don't think I can pull that off. So I can't do that. With that said, again, obviously, if someone like has a burst appendix, they should go to an emergency room to get their life saved. I don't know anything about emergency medicine. I don't know how to give stitches or put casts on people. Like, if someone needs an emergency room, they should go. But with that said, outside of that stuff, I'm confident with basically anything, because if someone got sick because their body got unbalanced, and I have a way to find out where their body's not balanced and balance it, I'm not going to turn anyone away.
Mm. Have you ever looked into Dr. Joe Dispenza's work?
Slightly.
Yeah, it seems like you guys are pretty aligned in this realm of healing.
This is my opinion of this. I never said, I've never been asked that. I've been interviewed about 200 times. No one has ever asked me that, but I'm going to answer it now. Mm-hmm. Probably piss off a few people. Hopefully not, but I'll do my best. First of all, I have nothing against Joe Dispenza at all. So all for him. That's number one. Number two, he's helping a ton of people, it appears. So I'm thrilled for that. With that said, as long as you're asking, I think what he's teaching is low-level stuff. But the masses are so ignorant about this stuff. They're like, holy shit, this is amazing, which I understand. If someone's starving and you give them a freaking crumb, they'll be like, give me some more crumbs. So I think Joe Dispenza's stuff is okay. Knowing what I know, I think it's fairly low, basic stuff. But if people are unfamiliar with this world and their introduction to it is his work, I think that's great. And I think it's one of the reasons he's so popular, because the masses are not that familiar with this stuff, and he knows a bit about it. And I'm all for it. Yeah, but yeah, listen, am I going to go to a seminar and become a student? No. But is he helping a lot of people who otherwise may not have understood this stuff to any degree? Yeah, so I like him.
So why do you say that? What do you think the limits of his work are that your work can continue to keep going, if that makes sense to you?
let me try to give you an analogy here. It's like it would be like if someone had no idea about taking care of themselves. They had no idea about like eating or like exercising or resting or getting their body balanced or whatever. And let's say you said to that person, hey, listen, why don't you just like shop at Whole Foods? You'll probably like find healthier stuff at Whole Foods than the supermarket you're currently shopping in. And look, you never exercise, like you don't do anything. Why don't you just like try to go to the gym a couple days a week? And you never do anything to balance your body. Why don't you just get a massage once in a while, something like that? And then, of course they do these things and they're amazed because they never ate well before and they never, so they were here and they go to here. That person will probably stay there and be thrilled that they were told that because they used to be down here. But there's also like this pro level stuff like that a pro athlete would do. And that would be the analogy. I think when people are so lost metaphysically and spiritually, a guy like Dispenza, who again, I don't want to say a bad word about because I don't have anything bad to say about him, but I think he's bringing them up to this basic level and they're thrilled. But there's the pro level too.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me.
Oh, let me just add one more thing. I'm sorry, Ryan. I just want to add one last sentence. And again, I would say this, like, I'll put it like this. I have a guy in Australia, one of my students in Zone School. He's a massage therapist because, as I said, who can join Zone School? Any doctor or healer of any type. So even a massage therapist could join. So his training is in massage therapy. That's what he's trained in. But he's in Zone School and he's in what's called my mastermind level. That's my highest level. So he's a very high. He had someone come to him on a heart transplant list. They're not on it anymore. Their heart healed totally. Their heart is totally healthy. I don't think Dispenza students are doing that. So again, I'm trying to say it in the most careful and nice way that I can because I don't want to imply anything bad that Dispenza is doing, but it's like for the masses. But I don't think his students are getting people off heart transplant lists. I mean, really getting them off. I want to really see that. And they can claim whatever they want, but I want to see that. So I think the results of people in Zone School is in its own category. So I just wanted to add that.
What are like some of this pro level stuff though? Like what is it exactly? What are some things for the person listening today that they can do or that they can bring into their life if they're not a healer and they want to start taking?
I'd say this. The pro level stuff, is in the high level, is in Zone School. It's hard for me to just teach it as we're talking, that someone would have to join Zone School and learn it. But I will answer the second part of your question more thoroughly. What can someone do to, be healthy and whatever? Okay. Realize that health is the normal state. It's normal to be healthy. Health is the normal state. It's normal to be healthy. That's number one. Number two, expect yourself to be healthy. Expect it. Like expect to be healthy. Like the expectation of health is important. And lastly, for this short answer, imagine yourself, picture yourself being healthy. Take a moment every day, close your eyes and just imagine yourself, however you want to imagine it. Imagine, however you do it, just imagine that every cell in your body is just filled with, vitality and health, and every cell in your body is functioning properly and is full of energy and is completely healthy in every way it can be healthy. That just image, that using your imagination like that can impregnate your own subconscious mind. And those ideas in your own, it's called autosuggestion, and those ideas in your own subconscious mind will manifest as health in your body. So that's just, it's a basic answer, but that's a start.
What do you think about manifestation?
I think two things about manifestation. I think if someone knows how to do it, which many people do, they can. Some people do it inadvertently. You could look at someone like Donald Trump. Donald Trump obviously became very rich, and he became president of the United States. How much he used manifestation techniques, I don't know. He might have just inadvertently fell into it. I don't know. Or maybe, who knows? Maybe he kind of closed his eyes and imagined himself rich and as president. I don't know. He might have used it.
And do you say that because he is just kind of this cocky guy who would be like, oh yeah, I'm going to be president. Yeah, I want to be president. I'm going to be president. Is that what you mean by that?
We'll put it this way. I don't know how
Yes,
Donald
yes.
Trump ticks. I don't know him, but I'm just saying, like, there are ways to manifest and kind of just put yourself in a proper state and imagine, use your imagination to, again, impregnate your own subconscious with concepts that will manifest. And that is a technique of manifestation. Now, so that's my first thought on it. I mean, listen, there's a guy named Neville Goddard, for those who like his books. I mean, he's like the master of manifestation. People could read his books and, become master manifestors if they connect with what he's saying. It's not the only way to do it, but he has his own method, and there's many other people who have their methods of manifesting. With that said, though, let's just say there is someone who uses it. Let's say they were poor and sick and etc., but they use their imagination to reprogram their own subconscious, or maybe someone else did it for them, and then they did manifest. They became a multimillionaire. They became totally healthy. So even though manifestation worked for them, which is good, I mean, I'm happy for them, because listen, it appears that it's better to be a multimillionaire than poverty stricken. It appears it's better to be healthy than sick. So I'm not discounting that. Like, good, but I don't think it has anything to do with happiness and peace. Happiness and peace are a separate thing. Just because someone's a good manifester doesn't mean they have happiness or peace. Happiness and peace, if that's what someone's interested in, is a different conversation. When you're a great manifester, it can bring you a lot of pleasure, which is good. That's fine. Enjoy yourself. But happiness and peace is a different conversation. So that's my answer on manifestation. It's very possible. There's plenty of ways to do it. Many people are good at it either inadvertently or on purpose. And I just was mentioning that I don't think they should confuse that with ultimate happiness and peace, because they're not related.
Are there some things in your daily routine that you do that you think like the average person isn't doing to help continue to program or to almost like groom your subconscious mind to
The thing is
do
this,
these things?
the reason, I have a lot of things in my daily routine, which I think are very successful for me, and I'm very happy I do them. And, I do feel happy and motivated and enthused. With that said, I hesitate to give them because there's many paths to success. Meaning, Ryan, there are some people who do yoga every day and they swear by it. They're like, man, yoga saved my life. Now I do yoga every day. I physically feel good. I'm happy. Does it mean everyone should do yoga? No. Plenty of people don't do yoga. They're happy and healthy. So why should that person tell people, get up every morning and do yoga? That's silly. There are some people who say, man, I started taking Tai Chi, and ever since I'm doing Tai Chi, I'm so happy and I'm so healthy. I mean, good, but does that mean everyone should do Tai Chi? Obviously not. Plenty of people don't do Tai Chi. They're happy and healthy. So I have my ways of thinking, but I hesitate to impose them on anyone because, for example, I'll give you an example. I myself, I'm a lifelong martial artist. I am. I've been doing martial arts since I was a little kid. I still do it. I love martial arts for many reasons. But would I ever imply that anyone has to do martial arts to be a great healer or happy or healthy? No. Plenty of people don't do martial arts. They're great healers. They're happy, healthy. So I think so with that said is the first part of the answer to your question. The second part of the answer is I do think there are universal laws. And as long as you're tapping into those universal laws in the way you want to, I think you'll be successful with that. Like, for example, should move your body in some way. Could be yoga, could be Tai Chi, could be something else, could just be taking walks, but moving your body, resting your body and mind enough, doing things that you love, that motivate you and enthuse you, having faith, because we don't have exact knowledge on everything. We don't know everything. So if you knew everything, you wouldn't need faith. But we live in a world of an unknown. Even religion says God is everywhere. All there is God. And God is a great unknown. The finite human mind cannot comprehend the infinite. So if we're living in a world of complete unknown, you need to have faith. So I think having faith is good. That's why people, they pray and they meditate and it makes them happy, because it's a expression of faith. Because if you didn't have any faith, you wouldn't bother praying. Why would you pray if you had no faith? Because what are you wasting your time for? You must have a little faith, because why would you pray?
Do you meditate?
A little bit. I mean, I'm not a meditator, but I meditated like a few minutes a day, like 3 minutes a day.
Do you think it's important for?
Same answer as before.
Yeah,
I bet there's a lot of very happy, healthy people who never meditate. And I bet there's a lot of happy, healthy people who do meditate. And by the way, I bet there's plenty of miserable, sick people who meditate. And I bet there's plenty of miserable, sick people who don't meditate. Is it necessary? Obviously not. But, do I like it a little? I like it. I'll tell you a funny story. I really have no conclusion for this story. I'm just telling you the story. Maybe you can interpret it. I don't even know what this is. But when I was a little kid, I was about 10 years old. My mother got me transcendental meditation lessons.
Very cool.
I was only 10 or 9. But they had it for kids too. They had like a kids program for transcendental meditation. I remember it. I remember going and meditating, with it, the transcendental meditation. And, I stopped. I didn't like it. Then years later, when I was an adult, my friend, who's a very wealthy guy, was donating a ton of money to the Transcendental Meditation organization. So he said to me, "Hey, Pete, you want to get trained in Transcendental Meditation?" I was like, "Oh, I was trained in it when I was like 9 or something." He's like, "I know, but you probably forgot. You want to get trained again?" It's like a 3-day training. It's like 3 days, 2 hours a day or something like that. It's like 6 hours of training, usually in a group. But he said, because he donated so much, he got me like this very renowned TM teacher to give me private lessons. So it was 3 days in a row, I think 2 hours each, and I had private lessons with them. And at the end of the 3 days, they give you a test to kind of make sure you're certified. And I'm only mentioning this next part that I'm going to mention, just so what I say after this has more impact. So when they gave me the test, I actually got 100 on it. And she told me, the woman who trained me, she goes, "Man, no one ever got 100, at least when she was training them." So I only say that not to say, "Wow, I got 100 on the TM test." I say it because I just want to point out I really understood it, obviously. But anyway, then I proceeded to start doing TM, Transcendental Meditation, just like they tell you, twice a day. Man, I didn't notice anything. I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel better. I didn't feel worse. I didn't feel anything. So after a little while, I said, "I've had enough of this," and I stopped. Now, that is part of my answer to your question about meditation. I am in no way dissing TM. I know a lot of people love TM. I have nothing bad to say about it. But to answer your question, that was my experience with TM. I found it worthless, but apparently some people, it has saved their lives. So, I'm sure it's great.
Yeah, I guess it's a time and place. It's a nuanced thing, and it seems like most things are very that way in the sense of it's not for everybody, and there's certain modalities that are better for others. So if you were going to leave people today with like a challenge or something practical that they could implement in their own life to help themselves, what do you think that would be?
I would say, I'm not going to take credit for this quote. I'm going to quote the great Gurdjieff. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but Gurdjieff was a great spiritual teacher. It's I hope I spell it right. Gurdjieff, I believe. He was a great spiritual teacher. Some people like him, some people don't like him. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. But Gurdjieff said, "Be aware of yourself everywhere and always." And I think that's the best advice I can give anyone. People are just mindlessly going through life like machines. They're just on their phone, scrolling through their phone. All of a sudden, it's 2 hours later. They don't even know what they did. Just be aware of yourself. Like, be aware of your body position. How are you sitting? Is there tension in your body? Just be aware of yourself. Be aware of like what you're doing, what you're thinking. Are you it's almost like when you see a movie, sometimes you get so mesmerized by the movie, you forget that you're in a movie. It seems like real life. Well, that's not, I guess you could do that because it's kind of fun if you want to lose yourself in a movie, but people lose themselves in life. They just are kind of just looking, and they're just hypnotized by like the news or CNN or Fox or MSNBC or, what's on, their phone. Just my challenge is be aware of yourself. Be aware of yourself. Like, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? Excuse me. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? How are you sitting? How are you moving? What are you doing? Who are you interacting with? Like, be aware of yourself. Just don't go through life as like a mindless machine. So that's my answer.
In a way, that's the purest form of meditation too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. People are aware of their breath and stuff like that. Yeah.
Dr. Pete, thank you so much for this episode today. This was very cool, and I'm fascinated by this whole realm of healing and the subconscious mind. So I really appreciate you coming on and enlightening us a bit today.
Well, Ryan, it was my pleasure. I had a great time. It flew right by. Absolutely. And again, any doctor or healer, zoneschoolofhealing.com. Go there, join us, and you'll love it.
I'll put all that stuff in the show notes as well. Dr. Pete, thank you again, and catch you guys next time. Thank you for listening.